Imagine being a teenager, scared and confused, and being accused of a horrific crime. Now imagine spending over 3 decades on death row for that crime, a crime you didn't commit. For two brothers, this nightmare was their reality. This is the story of how they were finally set free and how justice, after a long and painful delay, finally prevailed. Back in 1983, in Robeson County, North Carolina, a shocking crime stunned the local community. An 11-year-old girl named Sabrina Bowie had been brutally raped and murdered. The pressure on law enforcement to solve the case was immense. Soon, their investigation focused on half-brothers 19-year-old Henry McCollum and 15-year-old Leon Brown. What's crucial to understand is that both Henry and Leon were intellectually disabled. They had low IQs and a very limited understanding of the world, let alone the complex legal system they were suddenly thrown into. They were vulnerable, easily manipulated, and desperately wanted to please the authority figures questioning them. Despite a complete lack of physical evidence connecting them to the scene, no fingerprints, no matching hair, nothing, the police zeroed in on them. They were brought in for questioning, and what happened next would seal their fate for the next 31 years. Without a lawyer or a trusted adult present, Henry and Leon were interrogated for hours. The police used tactics that are now widely recognized as coercive. They were told that if they just confessed, if they just told the officers what they wanted to hear, they could go home, scared, exhausted, and unable to grasp the consequences. Both brothers eventually broke down. They signed confessions that were written by the police, statements that implicated them in the murder. Later, it became clear that these confessions were riddled with inconsistencies and contained details that simply didn't match the facts of the crime. For example, the confessions described events that were physically impossible given the evidence, but at the time, in a small town desperate for answers, these signed papers were all the prosecution needed. The coerced confessions became the centerpiece of the state's case against them, a powerful but deeply flawed piece of evidence. When the case went to trial, the outcome was swift and devastating. Based almost entirely on those false confessions, both brothers were found guilty. Henry McCollum, at just 19, was sentenced to death. He was sent to death row, where he would spend the next 3 decades of his life. His younger brother, Leon, then only a teenager, was sentenced to life in prison. Over the years, their case went through a series of appeals and retrials. There were moments of hope, but they were always followed by disappointment. At one point, their convictions were overturned, but they were retried and convicted again. Henry's death sentence was upheld, while Leon's was eventually changed, but freedom remained a distant dream. All the while, both brothers maintained their innocence, but their voices were lost in the gears of the legal system. They languished in prison, their youth fading away, while the real perpetrator remained free. Then, decades later, a breakthrough finally came. In the early 2010s, the North Carolina Innocence Inquiry Commission, a unique state agency created to investigate claims of wrongful conviction, agreed to look into the case. This was the turning point. For the first time, old evidence from the 1983 crime scene was re-examined using modern DNA technology that didn't exist at the time of the original investigation. A key piece of evidence was a cigarette butt that had been found near the victim's body. For years, it had sat in an evidence locker. When forensic scientists tested it, they found a clear DNA profile. The DNA on that cigarette did not match Henry McCollum. It did not match Leon Brown. Instead, it was a perfect match to another man, a man named Roscoe Artis, who was a convicted murderer and rapist living just a block away from where the crime occurred. Artis had a history of committing similar violent crimes and had even confessed to another, almost identical murder that happened just a month later. The science was undeniable. It pointed directly to another suspect and completely exonerated the two brothers. In September 2014, armed with this irrefutable DNA evidence, a judge officially threw out the convictions of Henry McCollum and Leon Brown. After 31 long years behind bars, they were declared innocent and ordered to be released. Henry had been the longest-serving inmate on North Carolina's death row. Leon had entered prison as a boy and was now a middle-aged man. The moment they walked out of the courthouse as free men was incredibly emotional, but it was also bittersweet. They had lost more than 3 decades of their lives to a system that had failed them at every turn. Their freedom was a victory for justice, but it could never give them back the years that were stolen. But the story doesn't end there. After their release, the brothers fought for accountability. In 2021, a federal jury heard their civil rights lawsuit against the law enforcement officials responsible for their wrongful conviction. The jury found that the investigators had violated their rights, fabricated evidence, and coerced their confessions. They awarded Henry and Leon a staggering $75 million in compensation. That amounts to $1 million for each year they spent wrongly imprisoned, plus an additional $13 million in punitive damages. It's believed to be one of the largest wrongful conviction awards in American history. The money was meant not only to compensate them for their suffering but also to send a powerful message that this kind of official misconduct cannot be tolerated. The case of Henry McCollum and Leon Brown serves as a chilling cautionary tale. It highlights the profound dangers of coerced confessions, especially when dealing with vulnerable individuals like juveniles or those with intellectual disabilities. It shows how the absence of scientific evidence can lead to a miscarriage of justice and, conversely, how powerful tools like DNA testing can be in correcting those errors, even decades later. Their story is a testament to the tireless work of organizations like the Innocence Project and state commissions that fight to uncover the truth. It reminds us that the pursuit of justice is often a long, difficult road, and for many exonerees, the struggle continues long after they are freed. Henry McCollum and Leon Brown's names are now etched in legal history, not as criminals, but as symbols of a broken system and the fight to fix it. Their exoneration is a victory, but it's a victory born from an unimaginable tragedy. Their story forces us to ask tough questions about our justice system and what we must do to prevent this from ever happening again. Learning from cases like this isn't just about remembering their names, it's about ensuring that our system of justice truly lives up to its ideals for everyone. Thanks for watching. If you found this story important, please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into cases that matter.